The verdant station hung in space like a giant wheel, turning slowly against the darkness. Inside this massive orbital academy, thousands of the galaxy's best warriors trained every day. The metal halls echoed with the sounds of combat training, heavy footsteps, and the hum of powerful machines. This was the Apex Academy, where the strongest warriors from every known species came to become even stronger. Kimna walked through these halls alone, as always. She was human, from a small colony world called New Sol. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy, very rare. As she moved through the training areas, alien warriors of all types turned to look at her. Some looked curious. Most looked unimpressed. The other cadets were impressive. There were the Vrelians, massive beings whose bodies were covered with armor-like crystals that sparkled like diamonds. They could punch through steel walls without effort. The Catharians were insectoid creatures with 4 arms and hard exoskeletons. They moved like lightning, their reflexes so fast that most humans could not even see them move. Then there were the Luminans, beings of pure energy trapped in special suits. When they fought, they moved like lightning bolts with a mind of their own. Kimna was none of these things. She was human. Soft skin, small body, no natural weapons, no special powers. Just a person, fragile compared to everything else in the academy. The other cadets did not even bother to talk to her. She was not a rival. She was not a threat. She was barely even noticed. Her instructor was Yun-Tae, a tall, scarred Korean man who had fought in more than 30 wars. His face was hard and serious. His eyes showed the weight of everything he had seen. He was one of the most respected combat teachers in the entire Confederation. Every warrior in the academy wanted to learn from him. Today, Hyun-Tae gathered all the cadets in the main arena. The space was huge with walls that went up hundreds of meters. There were seats for thousands of observers looking down from above. The floor was made of special metal that could handle any type of damage. Hyun-Tae stood in the center, his arms crossed. Today, Hyun-Tae announced, his voice loud and clear, is the final test. The test that shows you what real danger looks like. The test that shows you that no matter how strong you are, there is always something stronger. The cadets looked at each other. This was serious. This was the last trial before graduation. Hyun-Tae had a reputation. He did not make tests easy. He made them real. You will all face an opponent today, Hyun-Tae continued. Not a robot. Not a machine. A real living weapon. The most dangerous thing we have kept in this station. Each of you will spend 10 minutes in the arena with this opponent. Your goal is to survive. Nothing more. Just survive. The cadets became very quiet. The greatest warriors of their species looked at Hyun-Tae with new respect. This was going to be bad. This was going to be dangerous. The first cadet stepped forward. It was a Vrelian named Korth, his body gleaming with crystal armor. He looked ready. He looked confident. The doors at the far end of the arena opened, and a machine rolled out. It was not the real opponent. It was a training bot, mechanical and controlled. Korth destroyed it in 3 minutes. The other Vrelians cheered for him. One by one, each cadet faced their trial. The Catharians showed their speed and skill. The Luminans showed their power. Every warrior was strong. Every warrior survived. The betting stands filled with observers from all over the Confederation. People who wanted to watch the best young warriors in the galaxy fight. Lots of money changed hands as warriors bet on who would survive the longest, who would fight the best. Then finally, Yun-Tae called a name. Kimna, your turn. Kimna stood up slowly. She had known this was coming. She had prepared as best she could. She walked to the center of the arena. Hyun-Tae looked at her with an expression she could not read. For you, Kimna, Hyun-Tae said, we will use the real opponent. The actual trial. The observers above gasped. The other cadets looked shocked. Even they knew what that meant. The real opponent. The real weapon. Hyun-Tae was going to let the real monster fight a human girl who was barely strong enough to be a soldier. The betting stands became crazy with activity. This was not a test anymore. This was a show. Humans made bets on how many seconds Kimna would last before the Sethrak killed her. Kimna felt her heart beating fast. She was scared. Of course she was scared. But she did not show it. She stood tall. She waited. The doors to the deep vaults opened. Something was coming. Something old. Something deadly. Kimna breathed in slowly and got ready to face her fate. The ground began to shake. It was a small shake at first, then it became stronger. Everyone in the arena could feel it. Something heavy was moving. Something massive was coming closer. The observers in the seats above stopped talking. Even the betting stands became quiet. Everyone knew what was about to happen. Everyone had heard the stories about the Sethrak. The doors opened all the way. And then it came out. The Sethrak was nothing like anything Kim-Na had ever seen. It was enormous, easily the size of a large building. Its body was covered with muscles that moved like water under its skin. Tentacles and appendages grew from its body in every direction, each one thick and powerful. Its skin was dark purple and black with patterns of light that pulsed like a heartbeat. When it moved, its skin seemed to shift and change, showing different colors and patterns. The creature had no single head. Instead, its body ended in a mass of sensory organs, eyes and mouths arranged in ways that hurt to look at. Around these organs, weapons grew like flowers on a terrible plant. Spikes and blades and things that looked like electricity danced around its body. When the Sethrak looked around the arena, everyone who saw it felt fear, deep and real fear. In the seats above, a warrior from the Vrelian species stood up. "That is the weapon?" he said loudly. "That is what you want us to fight? That is madness." But even he was backing away, moving up the steps to get further from the arena floor. Even the strongest warriors in the galaxy were scared of the Sethrak. And for good reason. Yuntai did not move. He watched Kim-Na carefully. "The Sethrak has been kept in the deepest vaults for 300 years, he announced to the arena. "It has killed every living thing sent against it. It has destroyed every weapon we have thrown at it. It is the most perfect hunter the galaxy has ever seen, and it is going to fight our human cadet for 10 minutes. The Sethrak turned its body toward Kim-Na. It had seen her. The creature began to move across the arena floor. It was slow at first, but still faster than anything that large should be able to move. Kim-Na stood very still. She watched the creature come toward her. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was calm. The betting machines in the stands above went crazy. The computers calculated Kim-Na's chances of survival. The numbers came back, 0.03% chance of success. 1 in 30,000. The betting odds showed she would die in about 40 seconds. Millions of credits changed hands in seconds. This was not a fight. This was a slaughter that everyone was paying money to watch. The Sethrak moved faster now. Its tentacles began to move toward Kim-Na, reaching for her. They moved like whips made of muscle and power. One of these tentacles could snap the spine of a Vrelian warrior. One could burn through the armor of a battle tank. Several of them reached toward the small human girl. And then something strange happened. The Sethrak stopped. Not gradually. Not slowly. It stopped like it had hit a wall. It stopped like it had suddenly hit the end of a chain. All of its tentacles froze in midair. Its movements became jerky and uncertain. The creature made a sound, a horrible sound that was somewhere between a shriek and a scream. The observers above went silent. No one knew what they had just seen. The creature backed away from Kim-Na. It was actually moving away. The Sethrak, the greatest killer in the galaxy, was moving backward. It was moving away from a human girl who stood barely 2 meters tall. "What is happening?" one observer shouted. Yuntai's eyes widened. His hand moved quickly to a communication device on his arm. He spoke in a low voice. "Lock down the arena. No one leaves. No one speaks. This moment is now classified." His voice was serious and strange. Something had changed in him. Something about what he was seeing had shocked him. The Sethrak continued to back away. Its tentacles were now moving slowly around its body, not reaching toward Kim-Na but moving like they were protecting something. The creature was scared. It was actually scared. The apex predator of the known galaxy was afraid of a teenage human girl from a small colony world. Kim-Na did not understand what was happening either. She had expected pain. She had expected to be attacked. She had expected to fight for her life. Instead, she was standing in the center of the arena, while the most dangerous creature in existence moved away from her. She took a step forward. The Sethrak took a step back. The circle between them remained the same. The creature was keeping distance from her. Kim-Na did something strange. She spoke. "Why won't you attack?" she asked the creature, her voice quiet but clear in the huge arena. She was not angry or scared. She was just curious. She wanted to understand. The Sethrak made a different sound now, not a shriek or scream. It was softer, almost like a question. The creature circled around Kimna, keeping its distance. Its eyes looked at her, really looked at her. It studied her body, her movements, the way she stood. Minutes passed. The 10-minute trial continued, but no attack came. The Sethrak paced around Kimna like a wild animal in a cage, moving around her in circles but never attacking. The observers above did not know what to think. The scientists who watched the creature's systems began to look at their instruments with confusion. Something in the Sethrak's behavior was not making any sense to them. Kimna survived. 10 minutes passed and she was still alive. The Sethrak had not touched her. The world's greatest predator had refused to fight the human cadet. And no one in the galaxy understood why. The alarm bells began to ring as soon as the trial ended. Soldiers came running into the arena. Scientists came with instruments. Everyone was looking confused and scared. This had never happened before. Nothing like this had ever happened before. The Sethrak was supposed to kill. It was supposed to hunt. It was supposed to destroy. And instead, it had just circled around Kimna like a curious animal. They took Kimna to a medical center and checked her body. Was she hurt? No. Was she sick? No, she was fine. They took her to another room and questioned her. What did she do? What did she say? Did she do anything special? Kimna told them the truth. She did nothing. She said nothing. The creature just would not attack. Meanwhile, Hyun-tae was in the science lab. He had told the other soldiers to bring him the Sethrak's data. All of it. Every single piece of information about what the creature's body and mind had done during the trial. The scientists showed him their readings. The Sethrak's nervous systems had activated. The creature had recognized Kimna as a living thing, but then something in the creature's threat assessment had gone wrong, or maybe it had gone right. They could not understand it. The computers had stopped telling the Sethrak to attack. One scientist, a small Catharian with a nervous voice, said something to Hyun-tae. Sir, the data is strange. The Sethrak's systems are showing that it sees the human girl as something very dangerous. Like a threat. A huge threat. Maybe the biggest threat it has ever seen. Hyun-tae closed his eyes. He was thinking about something. He was remembering something from a long time ago. In his training as a soldier, he had learned some old history. Very old history. History that most people did not think about anymore. He stood up and walked to a computer. His fingers moved across the keyboard. He searched for something. The screen flickered. More flickering. And then Hyun-tae found what he was looking for. It was a file. A very old file. A file with a title that made his blood feel cold. Prohibited Species Classification. Ancient War Records. The file was so old that it was almost in a different language. But Hyun-tae could read it. The file talked about something called the Ancient Wars. Wars that happened 10,000 years ago. Wars between species that were now gone or forgotten. And the file mentioned humans. It said that humans, the species, had been classified as something special. Something dangerous. A prohibited apex species. Hyun-tae's hands began to shake as he read more. The humans had been warriors. The humans had been adaptable. The humans had been able to learn faster than any other species. The humans had refused to surrender. They had kept fighting even when the situation looked impossible. And because of this, the ancient governments of the Confederation had decided to do something. They had decided to suppress humans, to scatter human civilizations, to hide human records, to make the world forget how powerful humans could be. But then something very interesting was in the file. It said that every weapon that was made after the ancient wars had to be made with a special rule. The rule was, make sure the weapon cannot attack humans directly. This rule was so old that no one remembered why it existed anymore. It was just something in the genetics of every biological weapon. It was just protocol. It was just the way things were done. And the Sethrak was a biological weapon. The Sethrak had been created according to this rule. Deep in the creature's genetics, in the deepest parts of its instincts, there was programming that said, do not attack humans. They are different. They are dangerous. They are a prohibited apex species. Hyun-tae made a decision. He gathered the data. He copied the files. He made sure he had everything he needed. And then he went to find Kimna. She was in a small room, sitting on a chair, looking at nothing. When Hyun-tae came in, she looked up at him. You want to know why the Sethrak would not attack you? Hyun-tae asked. His voice was strange. It sounded like he was not just asking a question. It sounded like he was about to tell her something that would change her life. Kim-na nodded. Yes, I want to know. Hyun-tae sat down across from her. He opened the data files on a small computer screen. He showed her the old records. He showed her the history. He showed her what the files said about humans being a prohibited apex species. He showed her the ancient rules that had been written so long ago that they were now just part of the programming of every weapon in the galaxy. When Kim-na finished reading everything, she sat back in her chair. She did not say anything. She just sat there thinking, processing, understanding that everything she had been taught about herself, about her people, about what it meant to be human, was wrong. You are not weak, Hyun-tae told her. Your people are not weak. You were just hidden. You were just forgotten. And the galaxy was engineered to forget that humans were ever the most dangerous species it had ever known. Kim-na looked at the instructor she had always feared and respected, and for the first time she began to understand who she really was. Not a fragile human girl, not a joke among warriors, but the descendant of something ancient and powerful, something that the galaxy had spent 10,000 years trying to forget. News travels fast in a place like Verdant Station. By the next morning, everyone knew that something strange had happened in the arena. The other cadets knew. The observers knew. The commanders and leaders of the Confederation knew. Messages started going to people in very high places, people in government, people with power, people who had secrets they wanted to keep hidden. Commander Yuki was one of these people. She was an ambitious woman who wanted to become even more powerful than she already was. When she heard about what had happened, she realized something. This information could make her powerful. This information could change everything. This information about humans, about what they really were, could make her the most important person in the Confederation, but only if she was the one who controlled the information. Yuki called Hyun-tae to her office. The office was high up in one of the station's towers, with windows that looked out at the stars. Yuki sat behind her big desk. Hyun-tae stood in front of it. You found something, Yuki said. It was not a question. You found out why the Sethrak would not attack the human girl. Hyun-tae did not deny it. Yes, I found out. And you know what this means, Yuki continued. You know what the implications are. You know that if this information gets out, everything changes. The entire structure of the Confederation changes. I do, Hyun-tae said quietly. Yuki stood up. She walked to the window and looked out at space. Here is what you are going to do, she said. You are going to give me all the data, all the records, all the information you found. You are going to forget about this moment. You are going to forget about what you learned. And you are going to go back to being a simple instructor. And I am going to take this information and use it to reshape the government. I will become the most important person in the Confederation, and everyone will remember me for revealing the great secret of humans. Hyun-tae shook his head. No, Yuki turned around. No? Did you just say no to me? Yes, I said no, Hyun-tae replied. This information is too important to be used as a tool for power. This is about who we are. This is about the truth of the galaxy. This needs to be shared with everyone, not kept secret by one person looking to gain power. Yuki's face became red. She was angry. You do not have a choice, old man. I can have you arrested. I can have you removed from this station. I can make sure no one in the Confederation ever listens to you again. But Hyun-tae had already thought about all of this. He had a plan. I already sent copies of all the data to news organizations across the galaxy, he said calmly. I sent it to human colonies. I sent it to every major media source. I sent it to governments and schools and scientific organizations. The truth is already spreading. You cannot stop it. You can only decide whether you want to be known as the person who tried to hide the truth, or as someone who helped humanity discover what it really is. For a moment, Yuki just stared at him. Then she sat down slowly. Her plan had failed. Her chance to gain power through controlling information had disappeared. By that afternoon, the data was everywhere. The ancient records about humans being a prohibited apex species, the files about the ancient wars, the information about why every weapon in the galaxy could not attack humans. It was on every news network. It was in every information system. It was impossible to hide anymore. Human colonies started to wake up. People who had always thought of themselves as weak, as fragile, as not good enough started to understand. Their ancestors had been the most powerful warriors in the galaxy. Their species had been so dangerous that entire civilizations had worked together to suppress them. This was not something to be ashamed of. This was something to be proud of. Messages came back from human worlds. Messages of excitement. Messages of pride. Messages of anger about the truth that had been hidden for so long. Governments on human worlds started to make new decisions. They started to think about their place in the galaxy differently. The Confederation, which had seemed so solid and powerful, started to shake. Everything was changing. Everything was different now, and it had all started in an arena, when a human girl refused to be afraid of the galaxy's greatest predator, when a human girl stood still and accepted her fate, and when the greatest predator in the galaxy had recognized something ancient in her, something that it had been programmed 10,000 years ago to recognize and respect and fear. The truth was out, and humanity would never be invisible again. Years passed. Not many years, only a few. But in those few years, everything changed. Kimna did not go back to being a regular cadet. She became famous. Her name was known across hundreds of worlds. In the arena where she faced the Sethrak, they built a monument. Artists made paintings of her standing in front of the great predator. Philosophers wrote papers about what it meant for humanity to wake up after being asleep for so long. Kimna herself did not want to be famous. She did not want to be special, but she understood that she had become a symbol. She had become a message. The message was that humans were not weak. The message was that the galaxy had been wrong about its own history. The message was that sometimes the smallest, most fragile person can change the entire world just by standing still and being brave. She graduated from the Apex Academy. She became a military officer. And then something surprising happened. The Sethrak, the great predator that had been locked away for so long, was released from its containment. Not to fight, not to hunt, but to teach. Kimna became the handler of the Sethrak. She learned to understand it. The creature, which had been alone for so long, learned to accept having a purpose beyond violence. It learned to teach human warriors how to think like a perfect hunter. It learned to respect and even care for the species that had awakened something in it when it looked upon Kimna. Hyun Tai, the instructor who had released the truth, was celebrated by some and criticized by others. But he did not care about the praise or the criticism. He had done what he believed was right. He continued to teach at the academy. He taught the next generation of human warriors about who they really were. He taught them about the ancient wars. He taught them about adaptation and learning and the strength that comes from never giving up. On human worlds, change happened slowly but steadily. Governments that had been content to stay small and hidden now thought about taking a bigger place in the galaxy. Schools started to teach human history. Families started to talk about what it meant to come from a species that had been so powerful, so adaptable, so unstoppable that entire civilizations had worked together to suppress them. The Confederation itself was forced to change. The old power structure had been built on hiding the truth. Now that the truth was known, the power structure could not hold. New governments formed. New alliances were made. Species that had always been in control had to share power with humans. And humans had to learn how to use power responsibly. In the arena where Kimna had faced the Sethrak, a school was built. Not a military school, an academy, a place where humans and other species could learn together, where humans could learn about the rest of the galaxy, and the rest of the galaxy could learn that humans were not to be feared as conquerors, but respected as equals who had been wrongly forgotten. Years after the trial, Kimna stood in that arena again. She was older now, a commander, a teacher herself. Young human cadets trained around her. Some of them were strong and fast. Some of them were smart and quick. Some of them seemed normal and ordinary, but they all understood something that their ancestors had not known. They understood that they came from something great, that they came from a species that had once shaped the galaxy itself. The Sethrak was there in the arena too, now old and tired but still impressive and powerful. It moved slowly through the training areas, helping teach the young cadets, and when it looked at Kimna, something in its ancient eyes showed that it remembered. It remembered the day when the creature's instincts had recognized something sacred in a small human girl. It remembered what that recognition had changed in the galaxy. One young cadet asked Kimna a question. "Commander, why do you think the Sethrak would not fight you that day? What was it about you that made it see you as different? Kimna smiled. It was not about me, she said. It was about what my people are. We are adaptable. We learn, we change. We never give up. We survive where other things cannot. That is what the ancient wars showed the galaxy, and that is what the Sethrak recognized in me that day. Not weakness, but something that it had been made to fear and respect. The creature was programmed to see humans as something special, something powerful, something that could not be conquered. And even though thousands of years had passed, even though humans had been hidden and forgotten, that programming was still there. Deep in the Sethrak's genetics, the ancient truth was still alive. And when it saw me, it remembered. It remembered what humans really are. The young cadet nodded, understanding. Around them, the arena continued its training. Humans and aliens working together, learning from each other, building something new. And somewhere in the verdant station, Yunte watched from high above, looking down at the arena where everything had changed. He was old now, very old, but his eyes still held the light of a man who had done something right. He had told the truth. He had helped humanity wake up. And he had shown the galaxy that sometimes the smallest action can change the biggest things. The story of Kimna and the Sethrak became a legend. Children in human schools learned it. Students in the new academy studied it. It became proof that humans were not weak. It became proof that the galaxy had been wrong. It became proof that truth, once released, cannot be put back in a box. And it became proof that sometimes all it takes is one person willing to be brave, and one moment when the truth becomes impossible to hide, to change the entire course of history. Humanity had woken up, and the galaxy would never be the same.